All right, let's get our other Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to go. We've got our spinning wheels going, 1 and 2. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Yeah, God, those wheels are spinning, but it's Tuesday morning. It's rainy and cold out here in Seattle again, but that's okay. It's going to be hot in here with the hot takes. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, on these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing out there? Have the storms cleared out where you're at? Is it nice now finally?
Yeah, it's not. It's supposed to. It's still cold, but it's going to be a nice spring day. Low 70s, dry.
Oh,
It'll
God.
be one of those perfect spring days in the South coming up.
I
Kind of
think,
like every day I had when I lived in Southern California.
God. Yeah, it's been crazy cold out here in Seattle. I think California got all the rain this spring and winter. I saw like the South Sierras are like 300% snowpack, which is incredible. But I think we've only had 5 days out of the last 45 that have reached our average high or above, which is very cold. So I'm ready for the sun. I'm ready for it to be nice out finally. But it's nice in here. It's nice to hang out with everybody. We got our guy Jeremy Sean in the house saying, "Morning, boys. Missed you yesterday. I was wondering where you were." Jeremy's Scott edited it after the fact, but Jeremy's the reason that last Thursday I ended up going an hour and 10 instead of 40 minutes, which I had. Is like, Nick, come on, do a mock. Fine, you twist my arm, Jeremy, but appreciate you. Glad you listened after the fact. Achy Dragon, Broncos have been killing it the past 8 years. Oh, yeah, man, they've been killing something. Kevin Gray, morning Broncos country. Nick and Scott can't wait for the draft. Yeah, it's, 16 days away, Scott?
Is it the 11th? Yeah, 16. I get Tuesdays and Wednesdays confused sometimes.
They're all the same. I've been going in to work on the weekends, so I just whatever day it is doesn't matter because I'm working. Dominique Martin, morning Broncos family, MHH for life. Can't wait for the season to begin to see some actual football. Or likewise, coach once said, tackle football. Go Broncos. Yeah, some real tackle football. That'll be great. I mean, some of the XFL games have been entertaining. They don't really scratch that itch like the talent at the NFL, but I've been enjoying them. I see that Philip Lindsay's out here with the Seattle Sea Dragons, and I think the St. Louis Battlehawks have been doing pretty good. Shout out to St. Louis. They've been actually, I think, the number one team in attendance for the XFL, and they're kind of sticking it to the Cronkies, being like, hey, we still have a fan base here that is a little bit football crazy. They do love some football out there in the Midwest, the smack dab in Big Ten SEC kind of crossover country there. Michael Ronquillo coming in with this. No, you don't think so? I mean, Columbia SEC, right? No, is it Big 12 country then?
It's not SEC. They may have SEC teams. It's not SEC country.
I would love it if Missouri would join the Big Ten, just because if Iowa could recruit in St. Louis and Kansas City, that would be great because
Yeah.
there's some good talent
Yeah,
there.
that's they're kind of outliers. I still have a hard time with Arkansas. Now that
Yeah.
Texas is coming into it more than at least, but it's no, not Missouri.
Okay, well that's fine. That's, as my family calls it, the state of misery. But they're welcome to the Big Ten, in my opinion. I don't know. Are they an AAU affiliate, whatever the acronym is, where they have to have like the certain level of
Is it gonna
academics?
matter? It's all professional now anyway. I
The
mean,
Big Ten cares. They say they care up front. The presidents of the university care. That's about it. Michael Ronquillo. Good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. Is this stars coming in from Michael?
of
Is he kicking us off
course,
with stars?
absolutely it is. Michael the Icebreaker coming in.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, Michael. We appreciate you coming in. Good to see you.
And
Got it.
Miguel has
Oops,
come
sorry.
in. Miguel
Go
has
ahead.
come in with some stars as well. Thank you, Miguel. He
Awesome.
says, "Good morning, fellas. Good morning to you as well." Feels like you've been busy lately. I haven't seen as Miguel quite as much, so I hope that's a
Yeah.
good thing. And then David Cromwell coming in with our first draft question. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
He says, "Would Keon White interest you if he fell?" That's Georgia Tech edge at 67. Question one. B, how strong is a case for Mike Vrabel being a better head coach than Sean Payton? I think it's stronger than many think. I guess I don't know Vrabel that well to say that he would be in the same league as Sean Payton. That's Tennessee Titans, yeah.
Yeah.
Solid. I don't think he's quite had the same success top of the line as Payton. And Tennessee was I consider Tennessee a better franchise than the Saints were. The thing that people don't understand, and the Houston Oilers weren't exactly AFC royalty here, but what people don't really understand is how bad the Saints were. It was the Detroit Lions at best. I mean, we're talking 3 of the 4 worst franchises in the NFL: Falcons, Lions, Saints, maybe Buccaneers, those four. The Browns have a lot of history. Their recent history has been awful, but people don't really understand just how bad the Saints were. I know Broncos don't, because I saw some of the discussion about Sean Payton beforehand. I'm like, you don't realize what a turnaround this actually was and what it's like to be a bottom 5 franchise and to have a chance to win every season. It's completely foreign. It's a completely foreign concept to these teams. Sean Payton did a fantastic job, a Hall of Fame type of job with the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Will that carry over? Was that just, good circumstances? The teams are, the NFL is built to bring teams up. How come they don't then? Ownership remains the same, bad decisions constantly. But Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis, they turned the Saints into an NFC power for 15 years.
I mean, you'd probably still have to take Sean Payton. I do think that it's a close argument, to be honest, where we're at right now. And the big thing is Sean Payton's great success is tied to a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, you can't diminish what he's done with a Hall of Fame quarterback, but, he wasn't out there, dominating with the other quarterbacks after there. Small sample size, but it's still directly
tied. Better winning percentage with those guys. He was like 12-4.
But wasn't he not that good the year after? I don't even remember, his last season.
He had Jameis Winston playing some of the best of his career. He was 4-0 with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, that was the thing that actually did it more for me than what he did with Drew Brees. And Drew Brees wasn't good enough for the Chargers. He was a cast-off so they could get Phillip Rivers. So, Drew Brees was really good, but how much of that was Sean Payton also? There was a pair of them there.
Impossible to say, but that's the thing where it's hard to make that argument.
It came together.
Yeah.
And he helped bring in Drew Brees when that wasn't luck. That wasn't, I got a 7th round greatest of all timer in Tom Brady. That's freaking luck.
Yeah.
They went out and got Drew Brees.
Yeah. And they've drafted Reggie Bush. I mean, they turned it around after Katrina. That was incredible. Still, a lot of his success is tied with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and it's just, we don't know otherwise. He's the innovator. His last season in New Orleans, they went 7-10. Granted, the quarterback position was poor out there in 2022 for them, but not to diminish Sean Payton. He's an incredible coach, but I want to bring up Mike Vrabel a little bit. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, with Ryan Tannehill, who is being boosted by a run game and a scheme. Arthur Smith out there as well. They've done an awesome job with that defense. Mike Vrabel is a very good coach. I would take Sean Payton. You might have asked me this earlier, and I said, you could take Mike Vrabel. I could hear an argument for it. But both very good coaches. It's just the longevity of what Sean Payton has done that I think you have to go that way. The last one for me, I guess your first question here, Keon White intrigued you to fell to 67, a 285-pound freak athlete at the edge rusher / defensive line. Yes, that intrigues me. Get good players. The types of guys you're going to be getting, especially at value positions, 67, 68, are going to be somewhat projects, but you bet on height, weight, speed guys like Keon White, as long as they have it up above the shoulders and in their chest. So that's one that you swing on.
So Keon White, yes, at 67, absolutely 3rd round guy with the traits, and he's not undersized. He's a big edge, kind of on the other side of there. And then real quick, just to put a bow on this, talking about his first year he was 5-2 with Jameis Winston playing the best of his career when Jameis Winston got hurt. 0-4 with Trevor Siemian. And then Taysom Hill was then 4-1 as a starter. And they had to start Ian Book, rookie from Notre Dame, who's about 5'11". And I think he may have gotten drafted, but probably shouldn't have.
He went like in the 4th round or something.
He was at the Senior Bowl, and he wasn't. It went 9-8 that year with those 4 guys starting. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Let's not.
He's good.
Let's not undersell what a job that was.
Yeah. Now, he's a great coach, and hopefully it'll work for him in Denver. We got Kevin Gray coming in saying, remember, hit that like button. Thank you so much, Kevin. Sunny days with the hearts and the coffee and the thumbs up. Our guy, Rob Bucksbaum, coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. Always the best MHH team. Chase Wellner. Hey, fellas, I read the Peyton article at Bleacher Report and didn't do a good job convincing me. Me neither. We'll talk about it. Scott might, dig back into the
precious draft capital.
Yeah. Scott, I couldn't tell if that was tea sipping or something else going on there, but it is almost 420.
Give up your precious draft capital.
There we go. Pinky out. Dr. Van Nostrand coming in saying, I didn't love giving up a first for a head coach, but Peyton has been a great pickup, and Bleacher Report as a joke. Should stick to bleachers in the middle school games. We got Dave saying, thank you for making my morning work better. Well, good to hear that. And we also got our guy Aaron Wagner saying, morning, gents. Do y'all think it's more likely if Russell Wilson stinks again, Denver trades up for Williams, right? All of a sudden, is Caleb Williams. Yes, in 24, they trade back the next first to acquire capital to ensure they get Arch. There's no ensuring that you get Arch, and I also don't think you're going to have the capital to trade up and get Caleb Williams. I think you earn the right to get Caleb Williams
The hard
next
way.
season. Yep, unfortunately. Unless it's a crazy circumstance where a team like Jacksonville or Kansas City or Cincinnati gets their quarterback injured and they absolutely bottom out, then there could be that circumstance. But what are the odds of that? It'd have to happen week 1 for that to happen. I don't see it. You have to earn Caleb Williams and probably Drake May. And guess what? The teams that are picking up top there, they're probably up top there because they don't have a good quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to take them out of there for sure. It would like he said, it would have to be an injury almost.
To a young guy.
I always say with the the San Antonio Spurs and Tim Duncan, they had David Robinson. They were a great team. And all of a sudden, David Robinson gets hurt, and they get the number 1 pick, and now they've got them both. It would have to take something like that, where it's a good team it would be strange. You're gonna have to earn it. You're gonna have to earn the 1 or 2 pick to get those guys.
And it would also have to be an exceedingly young quarterback. I mean, we kind of saw this. The Colts had arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, and Peyton Manning, who still had years left. And guess what? They said, you know what? We're going to reset the quarterback clock. Peyton, thanks for your years. We're going to go with Andrew Luck. An unsure thing. And Denver benefited greatly from that. Thank you, Indy, for that. Michaela Israel, good morning, Broncos country. Got our guy, Jesse Hilborn, saying, morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We already said hello to Michael Ronquillo, but we want to say you to Kaylee on green, or maybe a yo. I'm not sure which one. Dan Wilkett, what round do you think linebacker Jack the Hammer Campbell will be available? Would be great depth at linebacker. I think he's going to go somewhere from mid-second to early third, and we'll have a chance to talk about him a little bit later. We don't want to spoil anything, but I do love me some Jack Campbell. Where is DWI guys when we need it? We're actually going to talk a little bit of linebackers. You're going to get me to say some nice things about linebackers. Diamond Rattler, boom, let's go. Keith, good morning, Broncos country out there in Kansas. Go buck 'em. Ernie Mays. Okay, now we can start talking about the Raiders and the Chargers. Scott, go. Say some nice things
Ernie's
about
here.
J.R. Capron coming in and saying, what is your honest opinion on Nick Benito? Scott levels me out on this one a little bit because I'll be honest, when pick 64 came around and the Broncos took Nick Benito, I was not a very big fan because I thought he was such a limited player with a niche, but he is an edge rusher at pick 64 in a class that is not as deep at edge as this upcoming year. Now, I will say the Broncos have a chance at edge rushers that I think are more talented and versatile this year at 67 and 68 than they had last year at Nick Benito at 64. But Nick Benito, if he can get after the quarterback, if he can set the edge a little better, if he can get his head in the game, I've heard some concerns about that, then I think he'll be a fine rotational player. Ever a starter, though? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's not going to be a miss and that you could have had better players. But if you're looking at edge, and this goes to be the problem, Nick, if you start drafting for need. Well, we need an edge. Well, did you reach for this guy or not? See, that was a thing for me is you needed an offensive tackle too.
Yeah.
And I've already forgot his name. I've already flushed him. All I can think of is Spencer Abraham. And I know that ain't it.
Abraham Lucas.
Abraham Lucas, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer Brown, Abraham Lucas, mixing all those guys up.
Same dude.
Abraham Lucas is right there for the taking, and you needed a right tackle. So, but when I'm looking, it's like, oh, this guy's a bust. A third-round edge, man, that's like saying a third-round quarterback's a bust. The guys that should be contributing early and right away are getting taken earlier at that position. It's a premium position. Trying to get that guy, as George Payton said, and I'll just repeat it here, you're looking for traits. Traits meaning what does he have? Some sort of physical ability that stands out that is higher than his production level. If his physical ability and his production level were both high, he wouldn't have been available at 62 or 63, wherever you got him. Basically a third-round pick. So my expectations for him were low. They were low. He met them, but it doesn't mean he's going to turn around and become something. I'm not going to guarantee that. It's just that you're taking it's a high risk, high reward type of pick at the time. And he wasn't going to be a guy that was going to come in and dominate right away. He's going to need some time. So the jury is still out. The early returns are bad. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have taken him in this spot, but I didn't have high expectations from either. I don't care that he was your first pick. He was still an edge taken in the 60s.
Yeah.
Those guys don't come in and have 10 sacks.
Yeah. And I thought he was a late third, personally. That's where I would have put
Mhm.
him because he's so limited in a lot of games. And I mean, did he meet expectations? I mean, the Broncos had an avenue for snaps last season at edge, and the Broncos go out there and trade for Jacob Martin, and they have Nick Benito getting like one snap in a game against Baltimore, or even like I think even inactive in some of those later games when there's reps to be had. So it's concerning. We'll see how it plays out. Year two, it's not Broncos have him under control. He's still extremely talented. Getting after the quarterback, so there's still some hope for him, of course. And there's going to be an avenue for snaps this season. Lawrence Rivera, what's up, guys? Scott, I finally caught you. What's going on there? I hope you're doing roller coasters in Florida. What are you doing riding roller coasters in Florida?
I've got an 11 and a 13-year-old, and the wife thought we should go on a family trip before they completely reject us for the next 10 years of their lives. So we did. It was fun. The Velocicoaster at Universal is top notch. Appreciate the stars, Lawrence.
Thank you
Bam
so much,
X coming in says, good morning, Broncos country. Good morning to you as well. And want to make sure we say hello to Jasmine.
Hey,
So, Jasmine, how are you? Good morning. I think a fellow Georgian. Broncos country is large. And Miguel comes in also with some stars. He says, people be tripping. The worst off-season move, talking about Sean Payton as one of the top 5 worst off-season moves.
Bleacher Report, gonna Bleacher Report sometimes, but interesting to have it that high. I want to say hello to a few more people, and then we'll get right into it. David Yukin, good to see you, David. We always appreciate you. Heath Holmes, morning, fellas. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Got the old man. Hey, Dad. Sometimes Scott's dad likes to hang out here. Well, here's my dad. Good morning, beautiful morning in the Midwest. Yeah, don't rub it in. Also sends a $9.99 super. Thank you so much, Dad. Thank you for the coffee. Excited. They're going to be coming out the end of June, and we're going to do some stuff in the Olympics. So I'm counting down the days when it's nice again. Wyatt, morning gent, sitting in a webinar for work. So make this show as long as possible. Well, you don't have to say that twice. You know, Scott and I are going an hour and 10. It's just we can't help it. We got too much to talk about. Clayton here on Morning Broncos Country. Smash that like button and share on the gym or bike. If center, corner, linebacker falls, what positions would you guys take? The thing is, I appreciate you, Clayton, but I will always say it's about the individual prospects that are available. And if it's John Michael Schmitz there, early third, well, then I love John Michael Schmitz. I don't care if he's a center or not. We need a center, so I'm probably elevating it a bit, but it depends on the specific prospect available. So I guess if I was ranking these right now, I would go how you listed them at center, corner, and linebacker. But again, it always comes back to what are the names?
Right. It depends on, it's like if you've got them equal in talent tiers, then you'd go corner first. The way you'd go center is because he falls down to you because it's not as valuable a position financially speaking. So you would have him rated higher. If you've got them all, let's say you're doing a 100-point scale and you've got a 98 at center and a 98 at corner, you're taking the corner. I promise you, you're taking the corner. Doesn't matter if you've got 2 Hall of Famers right there, you're taking the corner. And you start talking about trades. So it just depends on that, Clayton. If you see a guy as a plug-and-play center versus a project corner, but they're both around third rounders, odds are a guy ranked in the 60s at center can play right away. Then a corner would be a depth piece. So I would go for, in that case, the 60s, I would go for where they're supposed to be taken. Usually means the center is a more talented player, but the position, the value of the position drags you down some.
I mean, I might even argue, just for the sake of being pedantic, that the cornerback position is also questionable at starter right now. Your starter is Damari Mathis, opposite of Patrick Surtain II. Who's to say the cornerback you take there at 67, 68 couldn't beat out Damari Mathis? I mean, I think Broncos are in a place where competition at that boundary cornerback spot would be very good for this team, not only for the sake of depth, but pushing Damari Mathis and just giving yourself another bullet at one of the 4 most valuable positions in football. In a conference, well, not just the conference, but in a division that has Mahomes and Herbert. So I think cornerback it might be the second biggest need on the team behind center. And from a value perspective, well, I could hear an argument for it being number 1. I mean, honest to God, I really could.
Yeah, I'd still go center, number 1 for this team. Like I said, if I could take a single, let's take quarterback out of there. And if I could take a single Pro Bowl player,
Mm-hmm.
a legit top five player at his position anywhere from the NFL and take him off of one team and put him on this team without hurting the other team, that doesn't count. I don't get to take, I don't get to hurt the Chiefs too. But where that would help the team most, I firmly believe would be at center.
Wow, that is a fun argument. I think we've had this discussion before. Do you remember what I said?
Wide receiver, I don't know what you said. Edge, probably.
I said edge. Yeah, if I could get a superstar edge and pluck him on this roster, even though you feel okay about the depth, like having that 1A guy up there changes the complexion, I think, more than anything.
And you could end up with a team like last year where you're losing one-score games that were over-unders at 32.
Yep.
It should be better with Sean Payton there. That's the big one for me, we can get into that topic. The big one for me, the most important position that you filled in the offseason and that you could have filled in the offseason was your head coach.
Mm-hmm. And you did that with bells on. DWI guys coming in $20, flashing orange on there. Sometimes I feel like 20 is that raspberry color, but I like it when it's the orange for obvious reasons. Saying, speaking of that bad trade, what do you make of Draymond Johnson? Broncos should have traded him to Seattle last season. He's just playing it up. He's loving the spotlight in the media. He's where he was being suggested he was going to be traded last season. He's saying, I was going to eventually come here anyway. They should have just made it earlier. I'm loving Seattle. Thanks for showing me the money, showing me the respect. Let's go Seahawks. I don't make much of it. Go ahead, Scott.
And they took Shelby Harris, who had similar things to say, and they waived him and are taking a $3.3 million dead cap hit, and Shelby is a free agent again. Mm-hmm. It's a ruthless business out there, man. Shelby, Draymond, congratulations on getting that check. I don't think what did he end up signing for? About 15?
Yeah,
right in that neighborhood.
15 to 16.5.
Yeah, I wouldn't have advocated for that if I'm general manager. I wouldn't have advocated for that much money. But congratulations to him for getting it. And the Broncos were able to come in a little bit under that and get a player who could have a better season or seasons than Draymond had with the Denver Broncos. So like I said, it could be a win-win. Draymond needed a fresh start in a big way. This just helps prove it. Zach Allen, a fresh start coming out of Arizona. I think he'll feel a lot better. Appreciate you, Ethan. Good morning to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ethan. We also got a guy, Mark Schrader, $10 coming in after Ethan's 20. Says, good morning. Good morning to you, Mark. We appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. We got Dan saying, draft that cornerback Rush. We'll talk about him soon. We are big fans, no doubt. He's going to be an interesting one. And also, Keith Brugman saying, I would go with a top defensive tackle. Talking about if you could add any superstar at the position, plug the middle and get pressure from the position would be huge. Edge defensive tackle. I mean, if somebody on the defensive line that is you said Pro Bowl, there's a difference between an All-Pro and a Pro Bowl also, of course. So
yeah, that's why I said top five.
Yeah.
A top five. You had the number 5 guy at a position that you could grab and place on this team. Where would he help the most in wins and losses? I still think center. Because again, let's see, it wasn't Keith. It was Wyatt has a comment here just above. Wyatt, where are you? Yeah, here we go. It says, I don't think center is as important to fix as other upgrades on the offensive line that happen, but if a stud falls, grab him. That might be true, but doesn't, if I overload the offensive line, everybody's going to block one guy and you still have one guy getting blown up in the middle, your offensive line just got blown up. It's a unit. And the biggest problem I saw, I swear to God, Nick, I'm watching the Senior Bowl guys who've never played next to one another. It's a hodgepodge of 5 players from 5 different teams.
Playing new positions.
Playing different positions. Yeah, you got left tackles playing right guard. You got right tackles playing center. I swear to God, they were handing off stunts in drills better than I saw the Broncos do last year. And what I mean by that, y'all, is if you've got an end and a tackle and one of them loops around the backside of the other, the interior lineman has to be aware and come off of his block and pick up the guy that's stunting. Mm-hmm. Usually you'd see your center guard combination locked onto one guy and the stunt would come around clean and come right up the middle and he's right in the backfield. I saw college kids playing new positions with new teammates, with new coaches, do a better job of picking up stunts at the Senior Bowl than I saw the Denver Broncos do last year.
Some of that might come back to the topic of today, coaching. And
right.
Alex Ballentine of Bleacher Report listed his top 5 worst moves of the offseason. Coming in at number 4, a little bit lower was the Chiefs paying Juwan Taylor, but number 4 is a Denver Broncos trade for Sean Payton. And he writes, Good decisions rarely come from a place of desperation. After watching Nathaniel Hackett attempt to coach the Denver Broncos last season, the trade for Sean Payton feels like an overcorrection. Payton was the most accomplished head coach available, but the Broncos paid a very steep price. Because Payton was still under contract with the Saints, they had to trade a first-round pick this season, number 29 overall, and a 2024 second-round pick for Payton and a 2024 third-round pick. Peter King of NBC Sports reported Payton's contract is for 5 years and worth $18 million per season. Doesn't count towards the salary cap, so they don't get dinged for that, but it's still a huge investment for a coach who doesn't guarantee success. Payton is a good coach.
Wait a minute. That's the one that sticks out to me. For a coach that doesn't guarantee success, but that precious draft capital, otherwise known up until like the recent 12 months as draft picks, that 29th draft pick guarantees success. Are you freaking joking me?
I know, right? There's no such
Are
thing.
you kidding me?
Yeah, that's why I couldn't help but smile and shake my head reading that one. Continuing though, I don't agree with that one. Payton is a good coach, won a Super Bowl on both 161 to 97 161 to 97 record for his career. There's a lot of disappointing Saints seasons mixed in there, even with a prime Drew Brees. For instance, the Saints went 7-9 for 3 consecutive seasons from 2014 to 2016. With a year off to recharge, Payton could be what the Broncos need, but there's a chance that Russell Wilson is cooked, and there's a rebuild right around the corner. If that's the case, they just gave up precious draft capital for a head coach.
Draft capital.
Who is more suited for a ready-made team that's ready to contend.
I'm sorry. Is there something in precious draft capital other than draft picks at all?
I mean,
it's rhetorical. The answer is no. They're draft picks. They've always been draft picks. All of a sudden, they're precious draft capital. That sounds so pretentious. It just drives me crazy. Now, if we want to talk about capital that we need to trade in players, money, financial, and draft picks, that's capital. That's a congregation of different things. Draft capital, they're picks. All right.
No guarantees, of course. Also, this is not a bad year to give up the 29th pick. Kind of like, I feel like, late first to early mid-third. I think it's pretty conglomerate, I guess is the word. You can go a number of different directions. Obviously, 29 is way more valuable than 67 and 68. There's going to be better prospects on the board available, but it's not like there's this steep drop-off. I think there's a steep drop-off about pick 8. And then probably about pick 16 in this year's draft. And then after that, it's kind of questionable. So we got not plural one pick.
Yeah, it's not even multiple picks to call it. It's a pick. They gave up a pick, and they traded a pick. They gave up a first, and they traded a second for a third.
Yeah,
it's a pick. Precious draft capital. A pick, dude. No guarantee of success from Sean Payton. No, there's not. Can you show me where there's guarantee for success? I want to hire that guy. I want to draft that guy where there's guaranteed for success. Yep. And if the argument there is then you hired a mercenary coach who is better off for a team that was ready to win than a rebuild. Says who? Do you know where he started with the Saints? Should we rewind this thing back about 20 minutes and I can tell you where the Saints were when Sean Payton took over? I got a feeling Sean Payton really loves the building process, loves it. And during the process, when these same jacklegs were talking that nobody wants to come to the Denver Broncos because people are strapped with the Denver Broncos salary cap and Russell Wilson, I said baloney because you've got the richest owners and a premium franchise in the most popular league in this country, in the Denver Broncos. People will line up to take this job. Guess who was right? I was. I'm right about this too.
Yeah. It's definitely, I would not rank this one of the worst 5 moves. Now, was it outside the box? Have teams trading for coaches always worked out the best? No. But the Broncos brought in a good coach who seems to be kicking guys in the pants there in Death Valley, and this team desperately needed a kick in the pants. So,
in hindsight, may tell us that this ends up being a bad move. It could be, but the reasoning for it, there is no guaranteed move. Was trading for Russell Wilson a bad move? No, it wasn't. Now there was discussion about did you give up too much? Did you give up too little? I think most people lean that the the Broncos got a good deal. I thought it was a really good deal for the Saints. For
Seahawks.
the Saints, for the Seahawks. I thought it was a very equitable deal for
Mhm.
a player that wanted away. You see this in soccer all the time. We call him a one-away player. So a player that wants to get away, wants a move, and you're able to facilitate that move and get a good return on it. Hindsight said it was a tremendous deal for the Seahawks, but at the time, this is a good deal for the Broncos. Could it go bust? Yes, it could. It could end
Mhm.
up being one of the 5 worst, but not because it might go bad. No kidding. Really? It might not be perfect. There's no guarantee, but there is on a pick number 27. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Yeah. A huge investment for a coach who doesn't guarantee success, right, Scott? I don't want to trigger you some more. We got Linda Clark coming in saying Fort Collins, all caps, beautiful city. I do love the Fort Collins area. I know that Boulder and Fort Collins kind of have a thing going on, but as an outsider, both are great. Both beautiful areas. Family would go out to Rocky Mountain National Park probably once every other year growing up, and spent a lot of time in Fort Collins too as our kind of city that we'd spend a day in before getting into the mountains. So love Fort Collins. It's a good place. And I think it had the most breweries per any city in a zip code of anywhere in the country or something like that. So shout out to you, Fort Collins. Great
Gotta
city.
wash down the burn from all that weed you're smoking.
Look out. Eddie Vasquez coming in saying, love you guys. Popped in late this morning. Well, glad better late than never. We appreciate you coming in. We got Keith Brugman also coming back in saying, would you rather build something from the bottom or just be the one piece? I'll build it. I want from the ground up. Well, that's an interesting question. I think I would, whatever way gets me success, I think I would like overall control and the ability and the vision to, like when I always did Madden growing up, I would like completely gut the roster and then like rebuild it and get draft capital and like totally remake what it looks like, get rid of all the old guys, et cetera, and build it from the bottom up. Just, because I enjoy that process so much. Or like in NCAA football, I'd take a 1-star program and then recruit and build it up over, a decade. Florida A&M national championship, like 5 years in a row. It's a good time. But it's fun. Yeah. I'd rather build it from the ground up, I think.
A coach would rather have his stamp on the team. He
Mhm.
wants to be seen as his team, not I won it with this guy's players.
Yeah.
So a player in his 30s who is on a limited timeline wants to go and get that ring right now.
Yeah.
Those are different things. And what you're talking about, a coach would rather assemble his squad, build his team, and win with his team than go in and be the finishing touch on someone else's team. That one's not even close, Keith. I think that was a little bit rhetorical, and he answered it, and I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. We had Carol coming in late this morning. Good morning, Broncos fam, with a coffee mug in the hearts. Appreciate you, Carol. Jeff W. saying, as the Payton trade headline, there is no reason to disagree. Okay, I love this. So we have a different take here. For a team that's talent mediocre with questions at quarterback, to drop picks to bring in a coach should be a questionable move. It's not just okay, we can agree it's a questionable move. The headline is that it's one of the 5 worst moves this season. I don't know if it's one of the 5 worst, but
and
I
not
can hear
even
an
for me
argument.
on that. It could end up being, again, for me, it's that you made a trade for something that doesn't guarantee success.
Yeah.
All right. So therefore, you're saying you gave up precious draft capital, which, let me think about this, doesn't guarantee success for something that doesn't guarantee success. I'm in a logical quandary here, Nick. What's the argument again? This doesn't guarantee success, so it's bad to get rid of this for this guy who doesn't guarantee success. I promise you, a good head coach has a bigger impact on a team than the 27th pick in the draft. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, is Sean Payton going to be that good head coach? His track record says yes. We will have to wait and see.
Yep.
But the argument is flawed big time.
And I think we need to talk about, and we've already mentioned it a little bit, but the 29th pick is not the 10th pick. It's not the 5th pick. The type of player that you're going to get in this draft in top 5, which the Broncos gave up in hindsight from the Seahawks trade, much different than 29 overall. You're talking to maybe an Anton Harrison or a talented cornerback there. It'd be great to have that player, but Sean Payton in this draft class specifically at pick 29 is not the most valuable spot. So I'm not too not too hung up on it, to be completely honest. I'm going to be more hung up on the 5th overall pick. But moving on here real quick, the Broncos make another appearance on this list of the 5 worst moves of the offseason by Alex Ballentine. He lists the signing of Mike McGlinchey as the 3rd worst move this offseason. He writes, the Broncos' desperation to atone for the Russell Wilson trade continued, with the team signing a 5-year, $87.5 million contract to Mike McGlinchey. There's no doubt that Russell Wilson has a better chance of returning to form with better protection in front of him, but that it's not like Mike McGlinchey guarantees that. The 28-year-old ranked 35th among all tackles on PFF last season and gave up 6 sacks while drawing 10 penalties. McGlinchey's success has come in a San Francisco offense that is offensive line friendly. There's a heavy reliance on the zone run game, play action, and rollouts, all of which protect tackles from having to have to take true pass sets or displace defenders in the run game. Caleb McGarry is arguably a better player, same age, plays right tackle, allowed 6 sacks, but drew fewer penalties per PFF. Falcons re-signed him to a 3-year, $34.5 million contract. There's still 107 left in guarantees in Russell Wilson's contract. Broncos couldn't afford to overpay another player who may not live up to expectations on a long-term deal. They may have done that with Mike McGlinchey. So another one,
I'm better with this one as far as, I don't know all the deals to say what are the worst ones. Nothing really springs to mind about what the deals are. Did the Broncos overpay for this? Was this an overpay? It felt like it. It did. This was one of all the moves that were made about letting players go. This was the one that drew the most questions internally from the Mile High Huddle group. Was this a little bit of an overpay considering the other players are out there? Maybe. But if he's a good player, you don't mind paying a premium. Russell Wilson, you're not worried about his price tag if he's playing like Russell Wilson. It becomes an issue when the players underperform. So if you can get good Mike McGlinchey out there and you've solved right tackle, you don't mind paying that. So we'll see. Again, this one, I have more problems with this one than I do giving up a late 1st round pick for a proven head coach. That one to me that one was easy. And I can roll the tape back from January 23rd where I cut up my segment when I said, you guys are out of your mind worrying about a 1st round pick when you've got a chance to get a really, really good coach. But yeah, the Mike McGlinchey one was a bit of an overpay. If he plays well, you don't care.
Yeah, Mike McGlinchey, he had a pretty severe injury where I think he tore muscle from bone or something, and then he lost a bunch of weight this last season, and he did not look as powerful or as good. So we'll see what he looks like this season. By all accounts, I don't know if you had a chance to read that ESPN piece about Mike McGlinchey, like what it's like being a top free agent. But, asking around on that, apparently Mike McGlinchey is just like beloved wherever he goes, locker room, coaches, scouts, people in the organization, lunch ladies. I mean, they love Mike McGlinchey. So happy to bring in a good person. So I'm really definitely pulling for him in that regard. But his play has only been okay. I'd say he's been a mediocre right tackle, and they paid him to be a top 5, top 10 right tackle. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, he's more run-centric. I do agree with the comments from Ballentine that the 49ers offensive scheme and system helps protect some of the offensive line, especially when you got Trent Williams playing on the opposite side. But then to turn around and talk about Caleb McGarry, who had, I think, fewer true pass sets than any offensive tackle in football last season, but he was paid like a guy who you don't understand if he is a good pass protecting guy because of the true pass set. So
yeah,
I understand.
How do you say McGlinchey played in a team in an offensive line friendly system, and then use McGarry as your example and not say the same thing? At worst, I would have said, and sometimes you can be a little short on writing, and it's fun to have these hours to really be questioned on that and be able to respond back when you're getting out copy. It's different.
Yeah.
But I think the Falcons got a good deal on Caleb McGarry.
Yeah.
So was there an overpay when this guy was available? I'm not positive McGarry was available. I told you that before, Nick, that I feel like that deal was wrapped up in principle a long time ago, and for some reason they were waiting to announce it. That just seemed, it was so quiet that I felt like the Falcons had McGarry wrapped up way before they announced the extension.
Yeah.
Or the new contract, because he was a free agent.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it plays out for the McGlinchey one as well. Concerned about that deal. I probably would have rather paid McGarry what he got, or maybe even a little bit more than the massive contract that McGlinchey got, just because of the flexibility. I mean, you are tied to McGarry for 3 seasons, and it's a little bit, his tape has not been amazing. I mean, heck, Andrew Wiley was out there, and I don't think Andrew Wiley is that far away from what I watched of McGlinchey last season.
He was somebody I was pushing for the year before
Yeah.
because he was a free agent 2 years in a row playing right tackle, and he was only
Yep.
making like 3. He
Yeah.
was cheap.
Yep.
So and now he's making probably 2 or 3 times that.
But
But he played cheap on last year when he was available after the 2021 season.
yeah, so we'll see how it plays out. McGlinchey, former top 10 pick when he was healthy, I think like 2.5 years ago. He's pretty good. Last 2 seasons have been a little bit up and down, but hopefully it is better for him. And my understanding is McGlinchey was somebody that Sean Payton identified as somebody he wanted. Hopefully he's right on that. So hoping for the best, but that one has a lot more. I think that's probably the riskiest move the Broncos made this offseason, more than the Sean Payton trade. And talking about Sean Payton, Gary Palmer coming in with his second super of the day, I believe, 1999. Thank you, the notorious GLP. He's coming in on YouTube these days. I feel like he used to come in more on Facebook, but appreciate you, Gary, saying, really, we're arguing over whether Sean Payton trade was a good deal. Ridiculous. Go Broncos. The NFL news cycle has kind of grinded to a halt here recently, and I thought this was interesting and inflammatory enough. And I also wanted to trigger Scott a little bit about his precious draft capital. So careful, your eyes will stay like that. Yeah, got him. But yeah, it's interesting, no doubt, and we'll see how it plays out. Dr. Van
He
Nostrand
could have used precious draft capital on an off-ball linebacker.
Then I would have been triggered. Then it would have been me. But then Ethan would have been happy.
Look at this. I mean, we talked about what do teams think about these picks, first-round draft picks, etc. Well, the Miami Dolphins were willing to give one up to trade for 6 games of Bradley Chubb and re-signing him to a huge amount of money. That's what it was worth to them.
Yeah.
So, let me run through some names here. Let's just go. I'll go 27 to 35 of these names. Which one of these players would you not trade for Sean Payton? Tight end Dalton Kincaid, Utah. DL Brian Brisset, Clemson. OL Osiris Torrance, Florida. Georgia tight end Darnell Washington. Michigan DL Mozzie Smith. Offensive tackle Anton Harrison, Oklahoma. Will McDonald, edge Iowa State. Which one of those guys to you seems like he would be more valuable than Sean Payton?
None of them in a vacuum.
None.
But it's not just Sean Payton. It's coach plus that player versus Sean Payton, because you could have a coach that you didn't have to trade for.
Again, and most of the candidates that were out there this year were unproven.
Yeah, that's why I wanted Jim Harbaugh, right? Like, because then it would be Darnell Washington plus Jim Harbaugh. Probably I would have that over Sean Payton, but that's a.
But was Jim Harbaugh available?
Doesn't sound like it.
Do we even know if he was available?
It sounds like they tried. Flew out there in a private jet.
Like he wasn't.
Yeah.
If somebody wants, if he wanted to go to the NFL, he could. But he's got a pretty good gig going at the University of Michigan. As far as money goes, there's so much money in big time college football for, when they've got other avenues to pay their players, that it's there's so much money there. So
yeah, big Dr. Van Nostrand coming in. Nostrand saying biggest concern with McGlinchey is his pass protection. Russell being able to see over him. That Russell Wilson one might only be a 1-year issue. So we'll see. And talking about a 1-year issue, Gary Fire coming in saying, remember when the Broncos were a quarterback away from contending? If the Broncos traded for the Russell Wilson that most people thought they were going to get and who the Broncos thought they were going to get, they probably were a quarterback away from contending in terms of playoff contention. But Russell Wilson was a bottom 10 quarterback last season, and that's just on the field. I mean, it sounds like locker room, off the field caused some issues as well. Just some disconnect between him and some of the players. We'll put it lightly. So I think they were a quarterback away from contending, but they did not get the quarterback they thought they were getting. Unfortunately.
Chase Wellner coming in is Nick and Scott greater than Stinker Report. I like Bleacher Report. I do. They do a good job of aggregating content and some of their stuff. And through the years, as they have gotten to become a bigger and better and more financially able media company, they've done some really good things. And this Ballentine guy, I just disagree with some of the stuff that he's writing with. I think some of his logic is flawed, but I'm not going to bag on Bleacher Report. I quote Bleacher Report several times, and I think they do a good job. Again, there's a lot of people writing. I'm not going to take one paragraph and write off an entire media company on that. But thank you, Chase.
Yeah. And definitely there's some stinkers out there from I mean, with how much I've had talking on the air here, if you can find some stinkers from me as well, maybe even 3 or 4 in this show, but not a stinker. Todd Smith coming in with the beautiful Starry Night picture, saying howdy Broncos country. Hope you're doing well. We appreciate you. And Scott, I think it's time to get into our guys after we say hello to Jaheim White, saying if the Broncos were to trade up in the second with a third round pick and a player, what player do you think could be traded that isn't Sutton or Judy? Maybe somebody like I mean, heck, we've talked about him a little bit already, but maybe this staff is out on Nick Bonito. Maybe you trade Nick Bonito and he's worth a 4th-round pick this year after not doing much last season, 1 year less of control. And you move up from 67 all the way to 50, like that kind of thing. Maybe that's something. Then you go get an edge rusher to replace him that you like more with this coaching staff. I mean, I'm trying to think of who even is tradable from the Broncos. Typically, you're talking about guys on rookie contracts, but there's not a lot of value rookie contract guys that you'd be okay parting from right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it still seems a little strange to me that Jake Martin is still on the team under this contract, but there's some flexibility there. Could you move Mike Purcell? Maybe.
But not by much.
I don't know. There's not a ton of guys
Who's
out here.
tradable?
You don't want to give up K'Wan Williams. He was really good on a $3 million cap hit. So I don't know. Again, the wide receivers come up a lot for a reason. And how many players, you got to give up something you don't want to give up typically, especially if you want to get into if you want to talk second or third round. If you want to talk, okay, we'll get a conditional 7th in 2025. That's could be anybody. But Jaheim, I think that's a newer name to us. So thank you for coming in. That's a tough question. There's not a lot of trade candidates on here. There's more cut candidates than there are trade candidates for me.
And just looking at the roster, I mean, you're talking about moving up to the second, so it's going to have to be a valuable piece that would probably equal a late 3rd pick. And who is that on this team? I mean, Baron Browning potentially, Nick Bonito potentially, Damari Mathis potentially, and rookie
Josie Jewell wouldn't go that high.
I don't.
It'd be like Josie Jewell in a 3rd, maybe get you a 2nd.
Maybe I mean, you're picking high 3rd, so it would. But the 1 year of control and everything, the second contract, the injuries, I mean, he's probably more valuable on here. But it's it's all hypotheticals, as Jeff W says. But I think, you have a glut of
I was typing in a URL to check the Broncos depth chart, and I was doing it in this window.
Oh, don't do that.
Are you
I've
sure
done
you
that
want to
before.
leave? No, dummy, I don't.
Bye, Scott.
Where'd Scott go?
Talking about Scott leaving, I'm going to steal all his guys. We're going to talk about my guys. A chance for us to kind of, talk a little bit, get the platform here as we always do about some of our favorite players in the draft. And I want to talk about 5 guys that we're going to put the stamp on as my guys in this upcoming draft class. So Scott, I'm going to go first here with a wide receiver that I am a big fan of in this upcoming draft class. I think that before the combine, I really didn't appreciate him that much. And then I watched him run the gauntlet drills and run everything. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is so smooth, sudden, really just natural catching the football. And that is Marvin Mims Jr. out of Oklahoma, 5'11", 185 pounds, 21 years old, and with nearly a 32-inch arm length out there at Oklahoma. Really good down the field player, twitchy, vertical player, can stack cornerbacks pretty easily, can run intermediates route, has played inside and outside, also has been a pretty good special teams player as well. Very competitive at the catch point. If you go back and watch Caleb Williams' Oklahoma highlights, you see Marvin Mims littered all throughout the tape, making big plays down the field. He had 7 receptions of 40-plus yards that year with Caleb Williams, and he has 19.5 yards per catch in his college career to date. He also is somebody who, despite his size, competes as a blocker. You can put him in the slot, and he's going to take on a linebacker or a safety and do enough to get in the way. So he does have to work some on his press coverage. I didn't see that a lot in the Big 12. But I think Marvin Mims is a type of player that this team, because of KJ Hamler's injury, completely lacks. He can offer some special teams value as well. And if you're looking for some speed and explosiveness from the wide receiver position, I really like Marvin Mims. I think he could be there round 3. I don't think he's going to make it to round 4 for the Broncos. I think he's being slept on, and he's one of my.
Nick froze up just a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and take his pick. He went Marvin Mims. Y'all have heard me say Jalen Duncan a lot. One of my favorite guys at the Senior Bowl, left tackle, Maryland. He came in maybe a shade light, but look at the base he's got. When we talk about core strength, even when he gets rocked backwards, he's able to maintain That's him going against Isaiah Foskey. Quick, choppy feet. A little shove off right there as he's coming around. Oregon edge, I don't remember his name. Didn't strike me as memorable.
BJ Johnson.
But he came in, let's see. He came in, that was Maryland. He came in at 6'6", 306 with 33-inch arms, 5'1", 40, 32-inch vertical leap. So very solid athlete. Jalen Duncan, I think he should be a top 75 type of pick. If he's there and you get a third tackle, or I'd be pretty happy to take him.
Yeah, he's a very fun player. I will be curious to see where he goes. His tape was not nearly as good as what he showed at the Senior Bowl, so there's going to be a little bit of question marks for coaching staff and scouts to be like, okay, what changed? Why was it so discombobulated at Maryland? Were you not all in until there was money on the line? Was it the coaching there? Was it the system? What happened? And sometimes guys figure it out, but Jalen Duncan, he does have baseline athleticism, plus athleticism. He's a little bit small, I think, is my biggest thing. And if you're looking for a Broncos team that's maybe looking to play a little bit more gap power, maybe he's one that you're not as high unless you're running more outside zone stuff. But you're right. I mean, talk about a potential left tackle. If the Broncos took him at 68, writing might be on the wall for one Garrett Bowles, and you might have a long-term option there to get younger, cheaper, and fresh blood there at left tackle. But Jalen Duncan is some people a year ago were mocking him in the first round in those, 2 early 2023 mocks because the talent he possesses. And it's pretty obvious that you can see the movement skills, the fluidity on tape. So shout out to Scott with Scott's own tape there. Make sure you guys are checking Scott's channel. If you have questions about any of these players that were at the Senior Bowl, he cut up a huge number of them. And somebody at the Senior Bowl who I thought had a good time, another one of my guys, Payne Durham, tight end from Purdue. The Broncos brought in Payne Durham as for one of their 30 private visits. He is 6'5", 255 pounds with a 34-inch arm length, and didn't test incredibly at Purdue or at the combine. 4.87, but this is your classic inline guy with great size. I mean, the arm length and the body type is offensive tackle. He's probably one of the better inline tight ends in this class. He's really good, double teaming, working to the second level. He can seal off guys just by himself. He can function in space, maybe not against elite edge rushers because he is still 255, but can be a plus player in line as a blocker and run seams, big, long catch radius, can be a red zone guy as well. Caught 21 touchdowns in his career at Purdue, which is pretty darn good.
Here's your lining up at fullback too, Nick.
Yeah, he's versatile, can do a lot of different stuff. Also considered one of the big leaders on that Purdue team. Plays really hard, weight room leader as well. Only missed, let me see, how many games did he miss in his career? 1 game out of 45 in his entire career, spanning 5 years at Purdue. Not an incredible athlete, not really going to be much like if you're talking about a guy where Russell Wilson escapes the pocket and dumps it off to the tight end. He's not going to make many guys miss. Not going to be really an explosive player, but and I also don't think he changes direction extremely well. He's just not an incredible athlete, but he's big, he's strong, he's long. You can run up the seam. He can do a little stuff on the outs, red zone stuff. And I think in talking about round 5, if you're looking for a tight end that can play opposite skill-wise, complementary skill-wise to somebody like a Greg Dulcich, I think Payne Durham would be a really good get.
I do like Payne Durham. I also like Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver. He's about 6'2", 220 plus. You can see just the strength in his legs. He's a run after the catch guy because he can break tackles. He's bigger and stronger than just about anybody else in the secondary. Huge mix. He's got he has, let me see, 10 and a half inch hands. Yeah, that's about right. 10 and a half inch hands. 4.46 in the 40. So you got this size on him like this. With a 39 and a half inch vertical leap. We are starting to get some talk about him coming up into the second round for being a 4th or 5th round guy. He's somebody that I was talking about pretty early in the Senior Bowl process when I got a look at him. The way that teams like to play the copycat angle, where you see what Cordero Patterson does, you see what Debo does, where you can get these guys the ball and let them run over guys in the secondary. He fits that mold.
He's thick. Teams are looking for a little bit more of those running back type of body builds that can play receiver because the yak is such a huge part of the game, especially in those Kyle Shanahan-esque systems. and he can do that. Also, good blocker as well. I know that he did a pretty good job there at Ole Miss, despite the inadequate quarterback play that we saw there last season. Next for me is a guy that, talking about guys we were on early, this is one I've been talking about for multiple years now, and I'm so glad that he's finally graduating. That is Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. Played 4 years there to 21 years old, will be 22 to start the year next year. Massive arm length, 34-inch arm length, about 6'4", 315 pounds, and mainly is lined up at nose tackle, a little bit of one shade as well, but can line up over the B gap. He's fluid, he's long, he plays with really good strength, really good at finding the ball carrier, stacking and shedding, and then pursuing. He's just constantly unrelenting rusher. Now, one thing I do think is that he's a little bit, despite being as big as he is, a little bit top cut, a little bit more weight on his top half than his base. So sometimes leverage can be an issue. We'll see if he can continue to add more power and mass to his base. But somebody who I'm a huge fan of, improved with his leverage over time, got much better this last season at getting after the quarterback as well. Had 10 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks from the nose tackle spot at Wisconsin last season, which they do a lot to try to isolate their edge rushers and linebackers. So for the nose tackle to get that kind of production is awesome. So he's a really a talented player. One who I think as he continues to work on his leverage and add some more mass to his base could be a very good, versatile inside piece that teams is going to be a quality starting defensive tackle for 5 to 8 years. And somebody that I'm so happy he's leaving Wisconsin because my God, he beat the absolute living hell out of my Hawkeyes the last 3 years.
Does a really good job with his hands. You see him win with his hands really early, whether it's, using them to slap, rip, or just to grab on and dispatch. Really great job with his hands.
Yeah.
Someone who's hanging around in the fifth, and I'm only going to go 3 here, Nick. We're running a little bit out of time here, so
Okay.
you can go on if you'd like to, but I'm going to go 3. We can go on a long time on these guys, but it's Yaya Diaby. He played a little bit inside outside, 260 pounds. He was going against a tackle there, and he measured at the combine 6'3¼ 263 pounds with 34-inch arms and a 4'5", 140 with a 37-inch vertical. So this kid is a big time athlete, and he's got a high motor. He just keeps going and going. Is he a little bit of a tweener? False start there. I didn't see the first 10 times I watched this. Is he a little bit of a tweener? Maybe, but I think he's got the speed, obviously, with his 4.5 to play outside. He's, in a 4-point stance here. So he'll get after you head up where he'll seal an edge, but just quick off the ball, high motor, great athlete. People talking about this guy, if you look at NFL mock draft database in the 4th or 5th or even 6th, yeah, please. I'd be pretty happy with him in the 3rd, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he is a very fun player. Great mass, great length too, man. Scott, a lot of these defenses these days, I probably am a little bit too big on it, but length matters so much. They're trying to build these teams like basketball teams where they have these height, weight, speed, length monsters to take up space, and longer players. Give me all of them. Give me those length guys without a doubt. My next guy, go ahead.
I thought I got all of them out of there. I didn't.
Was that a Carl Brooks play?
That was Carl Brooks on one of these. That was Carl Brooks coming up the middle. I had Yaya Diaby highlighted, but 13 in the red helmet is Carl Brooks from Bowling Green.
Yeah,
kid can play too. So that was actually I didn't have him because I did mark the right guy, but Carl Brooks and Yaya Diaby playing together both made a play. Carl Brooks is inside defensive tackle. He swims over the Michigan center and just blows that play up. Multiple problems there for that offensive line.
Yeah, he is a really fun player, and I'm curious to see where he ends up going in the upcoming draft. I think that I've seen him in mock drafts. Like we've been taking him in like the 5th round sometimes. I think he's going to go top 100. I mean, he's a valuable player. He's got the body type, the build, the athleticism. That's a guy who looks like a top 100 pick. So we'll see. I'll do one more guy here, and I got to do it. This is for Ethan, but this is also for my own ego. My guy is linebacker, off-ball stack, whatever the heck you want to call him.
Inside linebacker, that's what they play. That's
linebacker. What
they've been playing for 1,000 years. You can just call them inside linebackers.
We'll call him a Mike. And that is Jack Campbell, University of Iowa, 6'5", 250 pounds, 32-inch arm length, and tested exceptionally well in terms of the the agilities, a 4.24 short shuttle and a 6.74 three cone for a 6'5", 250-pound linebacker is pretty freaking unheard of. He is big. He recruited to Iowa to play defensive line, and then they moved him to off ball, or excuse me, Scott, inside linebacker. A very intelligent player, one of the more instinctual and great processing players I've seen at Iowa. And I think even Josie Jewell was that kind of player as well, but Jack Campbell is a better athlete and significantly bigger than Josie Jewell with more length and mass. Really also good. This is one thing I don't think people appreciate enough about the linebacker position. Everybody sees these athletes out there and they're like, oh my God, that's a guy who can actually cover up and play in space and coverage. We need the guys who can run those 4.4 40s. You see that a lot more in terms of the ability in pursuit and pressure versus in space. The athleticism at linebacker, I don't think always equates to good coverage ability. I think it's more fluidity, short area burst, and instincts. And Jack Campbell has a keen sense for spacing and route concepts over the middle of the field. If you're looking for a zone linebacker, his ability to flip the hips and play the ball and just understanding where guys are coming is awesome. Now, if you're asking him to chase a incredibly athletic tight end out in space and man coverage, he's going to get burnt sometimes. He's not Luke Kuechly out there. He's not Fred Warner, but he's incredible. And again, I think if there's any player in this upcoming draft that you ask me, if I had to bet my life on one player being a plus starter for the next 10 years, it's Jack Campbell. They absolutely love that guy. You can go back if you want to search on Twitter or Facebook or the internet machines, Jack Campbell and Kirk Ferentz. There's like so many pictures of this coaching staff, like legit in tears, hugging Jack Campbell. Like they love this guy as a person. Didn't pursue any NIL deals this year. Thought it was a distraction. Doesn't have social media. Not for him. You hear him talk. He's egoless. He's super humble. And he is a absolute he's all about ball, working out the team, the collective. This year, if you guys obviously followed Iowa at all, you know that the Iowa offense was historically bad while the defense was one of the best 5 in football. And Jack Campbell was the leader of that defense. Many times people in interviews and whatnot set him up to, talk down the offense and, how fair is it? The defense is playing so well and the offense is bad. Every time he's like, doesn't matter. We're one team. So he's somebody that I think has a really good presence as well. So I love Jack Campbell. Really hope he has success. Really hoping he doesn't go to an AFC West team because I want to continue to pull for him. But he is one of my guys. He is probably the highest floor player in this entire draft. I think he's going to be a damn good player, and I'm going to be just a big fan in general. Great dude.
All right. Well, there's your Jack Campbell news for the day, and a nice long scouting report. When he gets drafted somewhere, we can recut that one up. But Michael getting us out of here, I think, says, great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Thank you, Michael. This is Go Broncos and buck 'em. Appreciate you being here, Michael, opening and closing us out like that. Great job.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. We appreciate you. Wyatt Horning, of course, so historically bad. The defense almost outscored the offense. I think the defense and special teams had more touchdowns than the offense did last year. Damn, it was close, which is unheard of. Patrick, aloha, gents. Lots of great insight today. Patrick, we love you. My last guy I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to do it, but I wanted to give a shout out to Julius Brents, who is he could scratch the top of his feet without bending over, kind of length guy. Hits like a safety. Needs to work on his ball skills. Needs to trust his technique in space a little bit more. But if he's there, 3rd round for the Broncos, you get a really interesting player out there. And we got Cody coming in saying, first timer here. Thanks for coming in, Cody. Thanks for joining us on Facebook. Says, if the Broncos add more picks by chance, would they draft a kicker? And if so, who are some names? Oh, you're asking me who are kickers in the upcoming draft. I'm going to be honest with you. I do not watch much kickers, so sorry to be somebody who is a little bit of supposed to be a draft guy here, but I'm not a specialist kind of guy. I do know that Michigan had the number 1 kicker in college football this last year. I'm looking at his name right now. It is Jake Moody.
So they invited 5 kickers to the NFL Combine.
Jake Moody was one of them.
Anders Carlson, another Carlson from Auburn. B.T. Potter from Clemson. Jake Podlesny, I think that was Podlesny from Georgia. So how much I paid attention to Georgia's kicker. Chad Ryland from Maryland and Jake Moody from Michigan. Those were the 5 that they brought to the Combine.
Moody, I know is
very to draft, but maybe an undrafted free agent. But I wouldn't expect a guy to be taken when you've only got 5 picks.
That said, Broncos totally have redone their special teams, and I think McManus is definitely on the hot seat. So it will be interesting. But my understanding is that a lot of teams really think highly of Jake Moody. He was one of the best kickers in football the last 2 seasons, and he could end up being a round 5, round 6 pick when it's all said and done. You won't see me with the Broncos mocking a kicker to the team, given their limited draft capital. But Moody is somebody to keep an eye on. Also, gotta love the body types. Yeah, 6 foot, 210 pounds. Those kickers got to go out there and make some tackles sometimes. You don't want, 5'5", 160-pound guy out there just getting trucked.
I missed one. There were 6, and he was the second most accurate kicker in the league. Christopher Dunn from NC State. He was 28 of 29 on field goals at NC State last year. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Not bad. Well, guys, that's going to have to wrap it up for us today. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Dan says, what round for a linebacker? I think Jack Campbell's going to go somewhere from pick 50 all the way to pick 70. He's not an athletic freak in terms of the speed, and linebacker is becoming a more and more devalued position in today's NFL. So probably go somewhere down there, but really high floor. Love the kid, obviously. Make sure you guys are following Scott on Twitter. Love Scott as well, at Scout Kennedy. Make sure you follow me at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please, if you're joining us on YouTube, subscribe to the show, the channel, like this show and channel, and share it to your social medias, Instagram, Facebook, retweet it on Twitter, TikTok, whatever your social media is of choice. We really would appreciate that. Scott, final thoughts before we wrap it on up today and get the show on the road.
Yeah, Cody did say if they do add more picks. So
Okay,
that was sorry about that, Cody. But yeah, I don't think they would unless they added several picks to getting a kicker. So sorry, I kind of glossed over that part of it. Final thoughts. The single move that you could make the best for a first round pick was for Sean Payton, hands down. Will it turn out to be that way? We'll see. There is no sure thing. There are no 100%. In hindsight, this could be the worst move of the offseason. But with foresight, looking at what was available, who you could get, and what it would cost you, a first-round pick, a late first-round pick at that, for a proven head coach is cheap compared to the impact it can have on your team. I've been saying it for months, and I'm not backing off on it.
Don't back off. Well, we appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. And I'll see you guys again tonight with Carl. We're actually going to run a mock draft. Carl's starting to get a little bit sad that he hadn't run a mock draft simulator yet. So maybe we'll run a couple. Who knows? And Scott, we need to do a full first round mock. Maybe that's something we can talk about
that tomorrow on my channel, which is youtube.com/Scott Kennedy, 9 a.m. Eastern.
So what time is that for Pacific time, everyone?
6
a.m. I will be here. Woo! I do it, man. It's all good. It's all fun. I'm one of those people, obviously, with these shows, you can tell I'm one of those people, feet hit the ground, and I'm like, bingo, bango, let's go, which is not everybody appreciates that all the time, but that's okay. Works for me, and it works for you guys. You guys have a great one. Like I said, continue to choose kindness and compassion. We'll see you again later. Have a great Tuesday. Go Broncos.